Good evening, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the 2016 Florence Candidate Forum. My name is Lori Wood. I am your new Chamber Executive Director. And also hosting this is Richard Rosales from APS. And he will also be our moderator. We would like to truly thank each and every one of you for your questions and your time, and we would also like to thank the candidates. I certainly hope this evening proves to be a positive experience, and at this time I'll turn it over to Richard.
Thank you, Lori. And welcome everyone to the Town of Florence Candidate Forum. Just a couple of the rules that we'll go through. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and then 2 minutes to answer each question. So we'll get started with candidate introductions. They randomly selected playing cards, and Mr. Hawkins is up first, so you can start your 2 minutes, sir. Introductions.
My name's Bill Hawkins. I'm gonna give you a little family history, how we ended up, we've been in Arizona since 1869. My grandfather came to Florence in 1912. I was born in Florence in 1950. I went to school out at CAC after high school for 2 years. I majored in architecture, and I worked for Valley Bank for 6 years, and then after that I went into the concrete industry and was in that until about 2 years ago, and I'm retired now. I moved back to Florence, I moved up Tempe in 72, and then I moved back to Florence in 18 years ago. I've been on the council for 8 years. I was liaison to all along I've been liaison to Planning and Zoning Commission, the IDA for a while. I helped put together the Arts and Culture Commission and served as liaison on that. And I've only missed 2 meetings out of the 8 years, which I'm kind of proud of, and I've always had an open door policy to anybody. My phone number is readily available, and I've worked hard to try to help businesses and individuals get any projects completed in a fast and cost-efficient manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall, we'll start your 2 minutes for introduction.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for coming. My name is Karen Wall, and I'm a resident of Florence, here in Anthem also. I was born in California, raised in Northern California. My parents owned an historic inn called Inskip. We had a bar, a restaurant, and a hotel. It was a wonderful place to grow up. When I got out of high school, I finished about 2 years of college and then started a career because I also started a family at that time. I have worked in a variety of positions, obviously, in my career. It's been a long one. I'm currently retired, but I consider my tenure on the Florence Town Council to be my job. I was appointed in 2015 in June, so it's been a little over a year since I've been on the council. Some of my career experiences have included teaching at the community college level. I also was a small business owner. I owned an executive suite in Sacramento. And I also worked for several large companies, USAA, American Express, and E-Trade Securities. I had all the necessary licenses to be a stockbroker, and I have worked in the financial services industry for the majority of my career. So I have a lot of experience with budgets and spreadsheets, things like that. But I have always felt that my career was mostly customer service. So I'm looking forward to continuing my tenure on the council. And I see all of you as my constituents and the people that I wish to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson, we'll get you started. 2 minutes for introduction.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Kristen Larson. I am a wife and a mother of 2, soon to be 3, beautiful children. My daughter starts kindergarten in the next week, and my son will be starting 3rd grade. Before moving to Florence, I was born and raised in South Dakota, which is where I also attended college. I worked in corporate banking for 7.5 years. My job was to analyze and create and streamline processes to be more efficient. I enjoyed working with the other employees to find better ways to think out of the box and also save the bank money. I hope to use that knowledge and those skills to find new ways to be efficient and transparent in utilizing the town's funds. My husband's desire to go back into social work is what led us to Florence. When we moved here, I was given the opportunity to become a stay-at-home mom. And although I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with my children, as well as spending many hours at the children's school as well, I now look forward to further progressing our town for the citizens and families that we serve. Having 3 generations of my family living here in Florence, I hope to create a positive impact for the town and for future generations.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox, ready for your 2-minute introduction.
Thank you. My name is December Storm Cox. I go by Storm Cox because everybody thinks December is a month and all girls are named after months. I'm one that's not. Anyways, I grew up in Florence. I was born in Show Low, Arizona. Moved to Florence when I was 8 years old. Graduated from high school in Florence. After that, it was the military. Did my 4 years. Came back to Florence. Still wasn't too much opportunity going on. I ended up getting with contractors doing the fiber optics, which was the super highway back then, and it was to tie businesses across the United States for their, doing franchise type computer work. And they opened it up to the public, and it became the internet, what we all surf on now. So I feel like I've made a big circle in life. I'm actually back living right next door to where I grew up as a kid. I bought the grandparents' house that when they moved to Florence, it was in 1978, and it was 1974 when we moved to Florence. So I guess I'm just an average Joe, but I plan on making Florence my home for the rest of my life. I'm 50 now, so I'm here to try and do something about getting everybody in the 3 different communities to communicate a little better and to tie us all. We're all on the same team now, and just hope that we can all work together and have the same dream for what Florence needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Duron, 2 minutes for your introduction.
Hi, my name is Michelle Derone. I'm 38 this year in September. I've been married for 18 years. I'm the mother of 3 children. My daughter just started her senior year at Florence High this year, and I have 2 sons, one in 8th grade and one in 5th grade. My family moved to Anthem when it was new in 2008. My parents also purchased a home in Anthem at the same time. Before that, we lived farther apart, so it's been really nice to have them as close as they are to us. My husband works for the State Department of Corrections, and he's worked there for 18 years total, and that's what initially prompted us to move to the town of Florence. The first year that we lived here, it was a big adjustment for us. We came from living in the Tucson area where we were a lot closer to doctors and dining and retail, and it was a lot for us to get used to a 45-minute commute to get to those things that we weren't used to. So that was an adjustment. Someday soon I'd like to see some of that stuff closer to home so we don't have to travel as much to get to that. Within the first year we moved here, though, we began to make lifelong friends in our neighborhood. My husband even ran into an old friend of his from the Air Force boot camp, and it was just really a random coincidence. I met his wife that day at the park, and we just hit it off, so I invited him over for dinner, and they came over, and they just made their reconnection there. They hadn't seen each other in over 10 years, so it was a really small world. But since we've made so many connections, we really can't see ourselves living anywhere else but the town of Florence. So we feel deeply rooted here, and we'd like to see some more job opportunity so our children also feel deeply rooted here. I work for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustee. He's based out of Tucson. I work mostly from my home office in Florence. I've worked for him for 17 years. My job ranges from assisting in coordinating, liquidating, and non-exempt bankruptcy assets to preparing and reports that grant us permission to pay creditors, making deposits, or overseen by the Office of the United States Trustee. So we're accountable for every dollar that comes through that office. So I'm well versed with informing the government of every dollar that we spend.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Duron.
Thanks.
So the questions that we have today were submitted by chamber members and residents in the town of Florence. And so there'll be a variety of questions that you'll hear today. We also have a question box in the back with cards that if interested parties would like to submit questions, at the end, if we have extra time, we'll be selecting questions at random from the box. So there's a box in the back, and feel free to fill out the cards. So we'll get started. We also, as far as the ground rules that we laid out, we're going to rotate. So Mrs. Wall, you'll go first with this question. And the question is, what is your favorite place or event in Florence and why?
Did you say events?
What is your favorite place or event, yes, in Florence, and why?
I have to say the windmill. It's been a lot of fun for friends and our family to go there. The ambiance, the atmosphere, the music, the food. We've always enjoyed going to events there.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson, what is your favorite place or event in Florence and why?
We've really, my family has really enjoyed the parades that are put on downtown, whether it's during the Christmas season or the rodeos or any of those. My family just really enjoys sitting there and watching the things that go by, and love also spending the time with all the other families in the communities and getting to know each other.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox?
My favorite place in Florence is probably outside of Florence, Big Wash, which is the Gila River where it flows before it comes into the canal. Spend a great deal of time out in the desert. I love the desert, especially after it rains. So unless there's something really happening in Florence, I mean, I've grown to go find my fun, whether it be on a quad or dirt bike or something. And I'm a gun enthusiast, so I like to shoot guns and be responsible with them. So and we got the greatest geology around for what I enjoy doing. So this is, I guess growing up here, you learned how to make your own fun, you know, and if it wasn't risking your life or having Tom Rankin chase you on your dirt bike, you weren't having fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Duron?
So I'm going to do a twofer. I highly enjoy the fireworks that we put on for the 4th of July. That's always a good time. But my favorite thing is the high school puts on their homecoming parade, and everybody comes out, and all the floats go down, and they all throw candy, and the kids love it, and all the schools are present, and the bands are playing, and I love that. We didn't have that in the larger towns that we lived in, and I love that. I would like to see so much more of that. It's the funnest thing that we do that I really enjoy going out to.
Thank you, Ms. Duron. Mr. Hawkins?
Yes, I think the windmill is a great place for events. You've got indoors and outdoors, but for town events, the Padilla Park is, I think, a great place for the outdoor movies and when they have music. It's a good, real nice venue behind the Silver King. And when we have the home tour, I think that's a great event. But that venue is historic, the town historic core, and I think that's I guess you could consider that a venue. But I think that's a great event also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. So if you didn't notice, we started you off with a nice little softball question there, just to get you affiliated with answering the questions. And get to little know about you personally there, so thank you. All right. Mrs. Larson, you're up first. And the question is, do you have an understanding of how town government operates? And if so, where did you gain this understanding?
You went from a softie to a toughie right there. No, I am a resident, and I am just a concerned resident. I mean, I understand the basics of government. I mean, obviously what's taught in schools and what your basic education would give you. But as far as the inner workings of it, that's why I'm here. Because there's a lot of things that don't make sense to me, and I don't think make sense to most citizens. As far as where our money is going and how, why are some things, services seem to appear to be duplicated, and how can we make those better? And that's really what I'm looking to achieve out of this, is to hopefully make this process more efficient, and also make sure that our government is working together in all divisions.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox, would you like me to repeat? If at any time you would like me to repeat the question, just let me know, and I'd be happy to do that. Do you have
You don't need to repeat it.
Okay.
I know very little about government, but what I do know is how to take a crew and build, fascinating telecommunication central office type stuff. And teamwork is something that most people, put lightly, and I know that what I understand about government is we all are on the same team, yet diversified in where we come from, and us being 3 different communities from different parts, we got our retirement group, and we got us that are going to try and retire. What I'm going to say is the old Florence people, the originals, the OGs, we grew up in Florence, and we're a little bit different than everybody else out there too. And then you have your Anthem folks that are pretty diversified in where they come from. From the people I've met, they're from a lot of different places. But everybody's here in the Florence area and has chosen Florence to be the place to live. I just want to see us work together in having an awesome community, and I'm really going to push for the Parks and Recs area for us, being that we have the Gila River with the geology there. It'd be real easy to do a nice park down there with some big cottonwood trees, because that's anybody that lives here for any amount of time, that's where you go in the summer, is you go try and find a canal ditch with fresh water and a cottonwood tree to cool off. So I just hope we could build a big park.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Duron,
Would you repeat it?
do you have an understanding of how town government operates? If so, where did you gain this understanding?
I have a little bit of an understanding just from watching the town council meetings being replayed from the website, but I have a lot to learn. I feel like I have a lot to learn, and a lot, I'm open to learning. I have a big understanding about the way budgets work, and then I have an issue with when a budget is put in place, if a department doesn't need to spend all the money and they have money left over in their budget, they get penalized because next year their budget gets cut because they didn't spend all their budget for this year. So then there's a misunderstanding that they operated, or they didn't need as many funds to operate just because they had a good year and they didn't need that much money. So then they're facing budget cuts the following years because they didn't use it before. So people are de-incentivized for not spending all their budget, and that's the way budgets get increased over time and inflated. So I would like to see those budgets be getting more in line, and it'd be nice if we could give a real incentive for not spending all your budget, so that it's not a de-incentivized, if you don't spend all your money, you're actually going to get a budget cut next year because you didn't need it this year. That means you don't need it next year, when something else could happen the following year that wasn't on the table the year before.
Thank you, Mrs. Duron. Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, in Florence, we operate under the council and manager system. The council sets a policy, and the manager, along with staff, implements policy. And we have to operate under this state rules, or up to the state rules. We can't override the state statutes, and on the same token, the state can't override the federal laws and statutes. So we're all kind of intertwined in that respect. But locally, yeah, you've got council that's elected, council sets policy, the manager and the staff implement the policy.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall?
Well, I've been on the council since June of 2015, and I have to honestly say I'm still learning. I had no idea how complex operation of a municipality is, and I would venture to guess that most of us don't really know it all. Things change constantly. We are, as Bill said, under regulations, statutes, federal and state, as well as our own ordinances, and things do change. Our legislature surprises us many times, so I am constantly learning. One of the things that I really appreciated being able to do, and that was to serve on the budget committee for this year's budget. And the places from which the town receives its income, and which are very different. We get money from the state, we have taxes, and those funds are frequently allocated in a way that we have no control over. So we have to make sure that we're living within our means. I was happy to see that this year we balanced the budget. That was something that those of us on the committee really emphasized. So I think it would behoove all of us to continue to learn, all of our residents, citizens, part-time, full-time, participate in our government, come to our council meetings, look at the council and the town's website. There's a wealth of information there and documents that help us all to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Okay, the next question. We're going to start with you, Mr. Cox. What is the number one economic development issue in Florence, and how will you address it? What is the number one economic development issue in Florence, and how would you address it?
Well, I think the economical development issue would be where the freeway is going to end up. It comes a little too close to Florence, and if we move it just a little bit west, I think it would benefit us a little better. That's something that's coming in the future, but it is an issue based on the planning and stuff. And I don't really understand what's the holdup on the north expansion, but I would like to address that because I think everybody can network or has met people, so we all know people that do the different things. And if everybody's on the same page as far as what the big master plan is for Florence, and anybody can get on the website and look and see what they're planning on doing, where they're putting the different areas for shops and different businesses and residential areas. We just really need to plan our streets. I think the streets are probably going to be a big issue, traffic.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Duron.
I have heard that it is difficult to start a business in the town of Florence, that they are not that easy to get a foothold in. So I think whatever can be done to help make that easier, that the town might have any control over or say in, we would be behooved to bring new business in, business that matches the town, and business on Hunt Highway where there's room. We need some businesses out here. We need some additional dining options. We need some opportunity for new revenue. We need something closer to home. But it is my understanding that it is difficult for new business to get a foothold over here. So,
Thank you, Mrs. Duron. Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, I think we need to concentrate on tourism and helping and keep the community moving forward as a quality place to live for retirees. The north-south corridor is probably realistically 20 to 25 years before it's actually built. So I don't really see us getting any industry in here or light industry at this time. So I feel we ought to be marketing the community for tourism, and like I say, keep moving forward with quality developments for the retirement community, because well, not just Florence, but Arizona as a whole is becoming one of the fastest growing states in the United States for people that are retiring because of our weather and everything. And I think like a good example of bringing in more tourism would be the windmill complex, and now the new artisan complex that's going to be on the 40 acres just across on the south side of the highway of Butte. I think that's going to help bring in more tourists, and I think we need to market the town more intensely, nationally and statewide.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall.
It would be great if there were just one answer to that question. Unfortunately, it's a very complex answer. I don't think 2 minutes is going to do it justice, but we obviously want more of everything. We want more restaurants. We want more small businesses. We want some industry, some employment centers. And unfortunately, you can't just snap your fingers and get it done. You need to have the residents, and you need to have the businesses established in order to attract the residents and the employees. So from my perspective, I see our biggest hope for growth is to maximize the what's the word I want, the draw of our historic district, and then to utilize those neighborhoods that we have surrounding historic Florence, such as Florence Gardens, Anthem, rural Florence, and our historic district residence areas. I see them as kind of the spokes of the wheel that will make the town go around. But some of the things in terms of the historic downtown that I think would improve our economy would be things such as specialty realty, or excuse me, specialty retail, arts, history, entertainment venues, that sort of thing. And, you know, it's not always true that if you build it, they will come. And it isn't a short-term solution, but I think we have in place the people that will help that happen. We have a very good town manager at this point. The staff that works with him are outstanding, and I think we all have the same focus, and that is to continue to develop the town.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson.
I think that in order to grow the town economically, we need to first start with infrastructure. So I think that everything needs to have a long-term plan, when that starts with your roads. Like it's been said before, we need to make sure that our roads are sufficient in getting us to downtown and making sure that we are utilizing our best paths. I would love to someday to be able to drive downtown and have brunch with my family and not have to, pass some of the prisons and stuff, but be able to have a beautiful route there, as well as utilizing our parks and outdoors. And once you're downtown, I think as long as we have we have a beautiful downtown as it is. It's full of character and charm. And right now we just need to utilize that. And like you said, like it's been said, we need to bring in those businesses and just make sure that the buildings are ready and prepared for those tenants. And once we focus on getting those tenants in there, we can really focus on the tourism and utilizing all of the great aspects of our town to bring in more people and use those facilities. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Okay, this question will start with Mrs. Duron. What is the most pressing issue for businesses in Florence, and how will you address them?
Existing businesses or new businesses?
Just the question is businesses in general, so what's the most pressing issue for businesses in Florence, and how would you address them? So you can define the question however you'd like.
I'm not a business owner in the town of Florence, so I am not sure what the most pressing issue for them is, except I have talked to some business owners, and I talked to one, and she said she didn't have a problem setting up her business as a hair care business, and she was very welcomed in. And I've talked to another who had an issue and wasn't able to really catch his hold here, and so he went out to a different area. I think I would say it's probably lack of customers. It's like Karen said earlier, is that just because you build a business doesn't mean you're going to have the customers and the people coming in and shopping and the revenue that you want to generate just because you open your doors there. So it is going to be important to get the residents in so those businesses have the customers that they need in order to make their business work. I think that we are losing a lot of potential residents because some of the desirable neighborhoods in Anthem and Florence to live, the taxes are high, and it's stopping people that work close. We have a lot of people that work in the prisons that don't live in the town of Florence. A lot of people. Their job is right there, and they're commuting to work because the cost to live in a desirable place in this town of Florence is higher than where they're living in Magic Ranch or farther than that. So I think that attracting new residents so that those businesses, when they do open, will have the customers to keep their doors open is going to be very key.
Thank you, Mrs. Duron. Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, I think we need to continue with quality developments, home developments coming in to give us a bigger base for customers for the businesses. And again, on tourism, I think we've got to kind of face the fact that, you know, when you have mostly retail, we don't have a industry. So when you're depending on retail, you need to promote yourself. You need to market it, and like I say, we need more rooftops and a bigger customer base, and that's all takes time. We're kind of in a catch-22 right now. I mean, what comes first? You know, you got to have the rooftops before the businesses, but it's hard to get the rooftops. Like she mentioned, we've got 5,000 people that commute in and out of Florence every day, but one reason is because we don't have the businesses and entertainment venues to keep them here, and it takes a while to get to that point. So I think we need to stick with quality development. Like I say, I think we need to start marketing the community better. You look at Oro Valley; it's 99% retirees, and it's just grown almost overnight. And I think we could do the same here, because we're halfway between Phoenix and Tucson, and it's a lot more laid back. The traffic situation's a lot better. That's what I think we need to play on, is tourism and retirees. I think that will bring in more businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall.
Thank you. I think if we were to take a survey of the business owners in Florence, I don't think there would be one answer that covers everyone. There are a lot of unique needs and concerns that business owners in town have. One of the things that I would like to see is something that I participated in when I owned my business, and that was a business roundtable where business owners could come together and discuss issues that they have in either promoting or increasing their business. It doesn't necessarily come from the Chamber of Commerce because those are focused a lot on networking, but I think a problem-solving forum such as a roundtable might be very useful to business owners, and among themselves they frequently can get a lot done. If it requires involvement on the part of the town, I'm sure that the staff and the council would be more than happy to work as issues are identified. But I can't pinpoint one issue that all business owners have, although everyone would like to have more customers, more traffic, foot traffic and auto traffic. I do think we need more rooftops. I know that the real estate market is coming back and there is more interest in property in the Florence area, so hopefully we'll see more construction of homes, which obviously brings jobs and hopefully will attract more customers for the businesses that we have and those that we'll have in the future.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson.
Although I'm not a business owner, I certainly know how to shop. And that's one thing I think that I know as consumers, and I feel that we are creatures of habit. And a lot of people are used to leaving Florence and leaving the area to go into Phoenix, whether for their job, whether to shop, so they're used to going that way. There's so many times I hear from people that, oh, I forgot that shop was in downtown, or I forgot that restaurant just opened down there. I really wanted to go there sometime. And they just don't make it that direction because it's not in their habit. So how do we fix that? I think that part of it is marketing, but I also believe it's also bringing arts and culture into the mix. So I believe things like this, maybe having a sculpture walk downtown or having special events more often, whether it's a First Friday type of event or something to bring people, to remind them that there's these great businesses downtown and there's these great places to visit. I think that would be a good start. I don't know if it would necessarily solve all the problems, but I think it could be a good first step.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox.
Well, I think I have a solution for the downtown, and it's just getting everybody to agree on it. I mean, if we're going to call it the historic downtown, we need to have the old-fashioned signs like soda and ice cream like you see at Tombstone or any place else that's gone with that theme. And all the people that are owners that are outside of the state, we make them adhere to our business theme, which is Old Town Florence. And you get the little ice cream shops in there, you get the little candy stores in there. These are businesses that are not going to make a lot of money, barely going to stay afloat. Those are your token businesses that you keep open at whatever cost it takes. That's where the town needs to step up, help those business owners, whether they be operating in a town-owned building, county-owned building, or if they're leasing from somebody out of state. But we make all of them adhere to the old-fashioned signs, old-fashioned soda, because back when I grew up in Florence, when they closed the streets, there were 7 bars downtown, and there was nothing more fun than all the hay out in the street, people having fun. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. Junior Parada was one of the biggest events. It drew people from Show Low, Flagstaff to come down for the rodeo, and they spent their money in our town, and I mean, it was happening. And now you go downtown, it's like a ghost town. And I ask all these questions, but I keep getting different answers, and nobody really tells how it is. But if the people are in agreement that we call it Old Town Florence and make it old-fashioned looking, you're going to get the people here. And with the Tempe Town Lake down there by the Gila River, they'll come, because we all go up there.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Okay, the next question, we start with you, Mr. Hawkins. What is the most significant challenge for Florence in the future? What is the most significant challenge for Florence in the future?
Well, I think, I think we've already kind of covered that, but I think we need to bring in, like I say, we need to get more people to move here. We need to bring in more tourism. I know, on a challenge end of it, we need more growth, and that's the challenge. And like few of the other candidates said, that on not just marketing, but we do need to have some quality, maybe like a major arts and crafts festival, some quality car shows with some, you know, awards that are decent to bring in quality, you know, shows. More tourist-oriented events, I think would help a lot. But as far as the challenge is, it's doing making things like that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall?
I think that the probably most significant challenge right now is determining what the future of Florence will be. We're in the middle of a strategic planning process right now where we've asked for input from a wide range of citizens of Florence, business owners, public officials, and others involved and concerned about the town and its future. I think we need to listen to what our residents are telling us, our business owners and the people who live here, as well as maintain our position within the county and within the state. It's not an easy task. It is definitely going to be a challenge to come up with a strategic plan for the next 5, 10, 15 years. We're going to have to amend or recreate our general plan within the next few years, for which all of the voters in the town will have an opportunity to vote and determine whether or not that really is the direction that they want the town to go. So from my perspective, I would ask everyone who has access to the town website to go online and tell us, you know, what you see as the most significant challenge for the town and what direction you would like us to take.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson?
I feel that the biggest challenge for the future of Florence is going to be ourselves, that we are in control of our own destiny in the future. Like it's been said, we need to have a strategic plan moving forward, not just short-term plans as far as, you know, I want this now and I want that now, but just the long-term goals. Everything needs to be unified. You need to unify the different districts that we have in Florence right now, so we're all on the same page, and so we're all benefiting from the services that are being provided. And I think that once we're all on the same page, we all have the same vision, I think that will help overcome any challenges that we run into.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox?
I think a great thing is what we got going here. People are getting together, hearing some ideas, you know, seeing how people are reacting to some of these questions. But honestly, I mean, I live my life day by day, and everybody does. 24 hours in a day, 3 8s, 8 of sleep, 8 of work, 8 of play. I think everybody at the end of the day would like a nice park where there's water, you can go fishing, you can walk your dog. I mean, if you build something like that, everybody's going to want to come play in your backyard. And that means businesses will just come. We're sitting here trying to, but if everybody's in agreement, it happens. This is something that's not going to cost a great deal. It won't cost as much as our swimming pool. I'm proud of that swimming pool. $18 million swimming pool. I deserve that. I think if we all build a community park where all 3 communities will go and walk their dogs, take advantage of what we have, and that's this north expansion. If you haven't heard about it, ask about it, get on the website, look into it, because that's going to be my big push. I want to meet and play horseshoes and stuff with all you guys. I mean, I think everybody at the end of the day wants a place to play. It can't be all work. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Dudon?
I think we face a lot of short-term challenges that we need to overcome before we even look really long-term. I think that the town has a lot of opportunity, or there's some challenges facing us right now. Where there's a challenge with the Florence Copper Project, that needs to be resolved. The town's spending a lot of money to fight that project, so that needs to be resolved. We really, really need to improve the public education out here. That's going to attract new residents. When the schools are performing great, then the residents are going to come. So that's a challenge we need to overcome sooner rather than later. If our schools are underperforming, then people aren't going to want to move here and they're not going to want to bring their families. I really think we need to focus on the schools so that we get the residents out here. We need to focus on whatever's going to happen with the Florence Copper Project, getting that out of the way so that long-term this town can go forward and be the tourist attraction. And we actually have parks similar to what he was talking about in Anthem already. We have a place that we can fish, and we have a really great meetup spot. So we actually do have some of those things he's already mentioning in our community here.
Thank you, Mrs. Duron. Okay, Mrs. Wall, this question starts with you. Do you agree with borrowing money for street repairs?
The cost of maintaining the road network that Florence has is astronomical. And it isn't feasible for the town's budget to pay for what's needed. I think we've outlined a very good capital improvement plan for this year and going forward. The cost of those improvements is not within the town's budget. And it is possible to borrow money that doesn't increase taxes, doesn't add a burden to taxpayers or residents, that would get us to the point where we have improved our roads, hopefully to the satisfaction of the residents. But I'm not against borrowing money to do that, as long as it makes sense in terms of our budget and in terms of our ability to pay it back.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. Mrs. Larson?
This is something I don't feel like I'm really fairly well versed in, but when I'm looking at the budget, there's things that don't make sense to me, like the government. I could look it up here, but there's a government section where it's like we're spending $6 million, I believe it was, or some amount that was astronomical, and I'd feel like there's other areas we could cut from, or maybe there's other areas where we're spending too much. I know that there's some recent hires that I think we're spending way too much on, and we're not spending the money locally, and I just feel like there's other areas where we could find that money. I don't know exactly how much we're talking, or long-term plans, or if we can break it up into smaller portions, but I feel like there's other ways to work with the current budget.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. Mr. Cox?
Could I have you repeat that question, please?
Yes. Do you agree with borrowing money for street repairs?
If it's a necessity, meaning if I'm just thinking that if we have a master plan that any investor could look at, and we start growing because we have parks and like the things that I've discussed, the winery's got a plan, so that's going to bring interest to investors. The investors will pay for the roads. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, they will help us because they want to establish a business here or a community here. So they will come and help with the roads. But we got to have a master plan that we all can agree on, where things are going to go, what they're going to be. An industrial park for the skilled, workers and the upper, class people. Then you got your franchise businesses that are just going to be the Taco Bells and that stuff. And then you got your little token downtown, which is a little, old-fashioned little shops and stuff like that. Guitar stores, whatever. Those type of things, need to be discussed, and we all have to agree on it. Once we have a master plan, and like they're talking about the strategic planning, I think that's great. But there's a lot of people that live in Florence, old Florence, that I grew up with, that really don't tune into any of that stuff, because we're people that grew up doing without. We didn't have the big city stuff. With no roller rinks. I mean, we went to Coolidge for roller rinks. So we can do without, but if you get people involved, and I'm willing to do that, I want a marquee at each community that talks about the phases and the production and what we're doing as a council to get where we want to go, to keep everybody informed. 3 big marquees you can watch and change it all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Duron?
I would vote to borrow to fix roads only in extreme emergencies. Other than that, I don't think we should borrow money to fix roads. If it's obviously our roads need to be drivable. If they're not drivable, then we need to fix them, period. So if it's necessary to borrow money for that, it is. And if it doesn't cost us more in taxes, like Karen was saying, I'm not sure how that's possible. If we have to borrow money, we have to pay it back, and when we have to pay it back, it comes from somewhere. But what she said was we get a lot of revenue from a lot of different sources. So the revenue that we get from the tax, the DMV tax, the tax that we pay at the DMV, if it's not enough to pay for our road infrastructure, which I wouldn't be surprised because it's over $1 million, but it's under 2, I wouldn't be surprised if that's not enough to carry the cost that it is to maintain these roads. I would vote yes on a bond for that if it was absolutely necessary. But other than that, no. I mean, I would take that into deep consideration before I voted for that.
Thank you, Mrs. Dudon. Mr. Hawkins?
Well, as long as the project is a necessary project and we see that we'll get a return on our investment and staying within our budget, staying physically responsible on our budget, I can't see any project that would be at this time that we would have to go out and borrow on that is a necessity, like in the immediate future. But yeah, there are times when, like on a bridge project or some major projects where we can't get the developer to defray the cost. If it's necessary, sure, but as long as we stay within our budget. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. And this will be the last question for the council candidates. And we'll start with you, Mrs. Larson. If you met a voter in a checkout line and had 2 minutes to introduce yourself to convince you to vote for you, what would you say? How would you do it?
Anybody who knows me, I'm a little bit shy and sort of hard to break into. So I don't know if I'd be checking into talking to people and checkout line very often. But no, if I guess how I would convince them to vote for me, I'm open-minded to listen to other people's ideas. The only reason I'm in this is to help the town, to lend my voice for the people. So if they are concerned about something, I'd be absolutely willing to listen and willing to take their advice. I want to look into it. I want to research it. That's what I do. That is the core of who I am, is I'm a researcher. It drives my family nuts because anything that you ask me, if I don't agree with you, I'm going to Google it. And so I like to make sure I get my facts straight, or make sure I can research things as much as I can before I make a decision on how I feel about that. And so I would say I'd want to listen to everyone's ideas and hopefully make them a reality, or try to progress those ideas as far forward as we could.
Thank you, Mrs. Larson. We'll start, Mr. Cox. We have 2 minutes in a checkout line with the voter.
Okay, well, I thought the questions were going to get harder, but we're actually ending on an easy question for me. I don't have a problem with walking up to any stranger. So 2 minutes in a line, I'll talk to them. And to get them to vote for me, I'm just going to ask them what they want. If they want the same things that I want, which is, I grew up in this area, and I love this area. If they do, they're going to stick around, and they're not just going to use our government as a stepping stone to get into Congress or something like that. I'm up here because I'm like you guys. You can walk up to me anytime and tell me that you got a complaint. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to do my best to represent you in the council for real stuff. I'm real people. I'm not trying to be, I'm taking a turn that I probably should. You know, I mean, you give back to the community, here's my time. I've done it just about everything else in life, so why not, you know? But I'm open-minded, and I'm honest, and I'm a man of my word, so that's how I'll get them to vote for me. Because my brothers and my family and friends and everybody know who I am and know that that is exactly what I do.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mrs. Dudon.
I run into people at the store all the time, and this does come up in conversation. People are like, you're running for council? Why would you do something like that? You're too young for that. Or why would you even want to stick your nose in that? And this is the reason why. Because living in Anthem, we pay higher taxes than the other communities in the town of Florence. We pay higher because we live in Anthem, and we pay to live here, and we love it here. So we're okay to pay more, except for, I want to know when the bonds that we pay for are going to run out. I want to know when we can expect the taxes that we pay to live in Anthem to kind of regulate with what the taxes the other town people in Florence pay. I want that to regulate. We're part of this town too. We want to feel included. We don't want to be like the ugly stepchild because we live here, we pay more. And that's what it is right now. So that comes up in conversation a lot. It costs a lot of money to live out here. We pay a lot to Johnson Utilities. We pay a lot in special assessment taxes. That comes up all the time. And that's what I talk to people about. Are you interested in continuing to pay the higher taxes that we pay just because we live in Anthem? And that comes up a lot.
Thank you, Mrs. Duron. Mr. Hawkins?
Could you repeat the question?
Yep.
Well,
you-
no, I didn't.
Yeah, if you met a voter in a checkout line and had 2 minutes, how would you introduce yourself and convince them to vote for you?
Well, I'd tell them my name, that I'm, how long I've lived here, my experience on the council. I want to help keep the town moving forward. I think I've proven myself over the years. I don't know of anybody that has come to me with a problem that didn't walk away satisfied. I know we've got a great staff. We have one of the best staffs you could ask for in the state, actually. And I think we just need to move forward as a community as a whole and start getting more citizen input. It's amazing, you know, how many people or how few of people that ever come to the meetings. You know, that it would, you know, I wish there was a better way of informing people other than just the website, but I just want to keep helping the town move forward, and I hope that people give me an opportunity to continue if, you know, if they're happy with my performance to this point.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Mrs. Wall.
I don't often get asked in the checkout line, or I don't often ask people to vote for me in the checkout line at the grocery store, but people who know me know that I really care about the town, and if they have a concern, I'm going to do everything I can to get answers for them. If I have an opportunity to meet someone new and they discover I'm running for council, I want to listen to them and find out the things that concern them. It's kind of the customer service background that I come from. I think the people who know me have known or have seen that I do follow up. And as Bill said, we do have a great staff. I've never had a question come up that I haven't been able to get an answer for. It may not always be the answer that the person who asked it wants, but at least I give as much information as I can. I feel that I have a certain amount of integrity that hopefully voters will appreciate. I definitely study hard and listen to both sides of every story. In the 2 minutes in the grocery line, it's very difficult to impress upon someone what you're like, but my husband always says that I'm a very honest person when he's the one that teases people, and they look at me and say, you know, is he telling the truth or not? So I'll be truthful with anyone who asks me a question. We have to communicate. We're not going to get anything done if we don't communicate. So encourage anyone to come up to me, whether it's in the grocery line or out, you know, walking around town. Let me know what your concerns are, and I'll do everything I can to bring you an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wall. So thank you to the 5 council candidates. Could we get one more round of applause for them all, please? Thank you. So as we switch out from council candidates to mayoral candidates, we're going to welcome town staff member, town manager Brent Billingsley to come up and inform the public about Proposition 411, the home rule. And so I'll turn the microphone over to Brent as we set up for the mayoral candidate.
It's on. Is that on there?
There we go. How's everybody doing? Thank you for participating in our local democracy. Thank you for coming out. While this thing warms up, it'll be up here in just a minute. Has anybody seen the presentations that we gave a couple months ago about the expenditure limitation? We have a microphone, sorry. I'll talk into the mic when it's time. Oh, here we go. Here we go. How's everybody doing? My name is Brent, and I am with the town of Florence, and I'm very happy to see everybody here this evening, and I'm going to try to talk to you guys. I wish that I had a mic I could walk around with, but I don't. Let me see if I can move this so you can see the screen instead of my big giant head. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Not really? Oh, I'm sorry. I could sit down, but then I would feel bad because I'm running out of cord. No, I'm good. This will be very, very quick. As a matter of fact, it didn't even start at the start, so let me back it up here. Is everybody familiar with Proposition 411? Every 4 years in the state of Arizona, local governments, cities and towns have the ability to allow their voters to vote for local control. What is local control? Local control is the ability for decision makers, i.e. the council, in terms of Florence, to vote on how to expend the revenues that we receive, that the town receives. It's a logical thing. Why wouldn't the council be able to decide what to do with the money that the town receives? But in Arizona, it's a little bit different. In 1979-1980, the actual constitution of the state of Arizona was changed that allowed for home rule. Before that, an expenditure limitation was set, or since that time, an expenditure limitation is set based on the 1979-1980 budget year for the base. So it looks at and then factors from the money that the town spent in 1979-1980. So if you can imagine going back to a base that's based on 79-80, Florence is a very different place now than it was in the past. Depending upon how the vote turns out, either the town has the ability to have local control or to follow the state law in terms of the base. A similar election was held in 2014, and in 2014, for the first time ever in the town of Florence, the home rule election did not pass. What does that mean? Home rule had passed in Florence for 8 of 9 elections prior to that, and that totals 33 of 35 years. If passed this year, Proposition 411, the town would have local control for additional 4 years. The home rule option election is in August. It's the same as the election for council candidates and mayor, and that's one of the reasons why I'm giving this presentation tonight. A yes vote, once again, allows for local control from your local elected officials. A no vote goes to the state expenditure limitation based on the 7980 base. Home rule, this is the most important thing in the presentation in bold at the bottom. A vote, either yes or no for home rule, does not affect taxes, fees, etc. It's just a decision on if the local elected officials can determine how to expend their revenues. What are the town services that would be affected or are affected by this election? Clearly, if you go to the 1979-1980 base, the town can't spend the revenues that it receives above that base amount. So obviously we provide a lot of services, police, fire, parks. You heard a lot of it during the debate here. All of those things would be affected by the election, either yes or no. Fiscal responsibility. One of the things that we heard a few minutes ago, I mentioned that we did some road shows in April of this year regarding the last election for the expenditure limitation, and we also presented information on home rule. One of the things that we heard from folks was, and the questions we received, what is the town doing to be fiscally conservative? There are a lot of really good answers to this question. 9 months ago, the town had a projected budget that was $1.2 million in the red. Town budget's now in the black. Why is that taking place? It's the leadership of the council in making those decisions. It's the diligence of the staff, including the department directors. It's the hard work of our finance department to put us in that position. And finally, the hard work of the folks that sat on the budget committee. Both members of the budget committee are here this evening. Changing the way we do business, developing best practices for how we work as a modern city, and lastly, implementing fiscally conservative practices. A very important democratic item associated with this slide is, it's actually the law. Budget is a public process. It happens every year in every city and town. It is an open process. It is open to public comment, questions. There are multiple public hearings and a lot of opportunities for citizens to participate in the budget process. If you need more information on the home rule, 411, Lisa Garcia is our deputy clerk. She's here tonight. If you'd like to wave to everybody, Lisa. And her phone number's there. Gabe Garcia is our finance director. He's here tonight. Gabe, would you wave at everybody? My ugly mug's up here, so is Jess Knutson's. Jess, would you wave at everybody? We're here tonight. If you want to ask us additional questions, you can also contact us at Town Hall. We'd be glad, any of us, to talk about home rule and what that means for the town of Florence. So, in closing, a yes or a no vote doesn't impact fees or taxes collected. The town has already decided, and we've got the direction from council, that we're not going to exceed the expenditures that were made by the town last year, which we ended up in the black. Voters have approved home rule 8 of 9 times, 33 of 35 years. So with that, I turn it back over to Richard, and town staff will be in the back if you'd like to walk back and ask us additional questions. But thanks again for coming out tonight.
Good job.
You're ready to ride. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Brent. We'd like to invite the mayoral candidates up on the stage so we can get set up for the question and answer period. There is another forum tomorrow night at the Windmill Winery that begins at 6 o'clock. And there was a comment about the the questions being pretty easy, well, we have another forum tomorrow night that may be a little bit tougher questions. But just wanted to remind you, tomorrow night at the Windmill Winery from 6 to 8 p.m. And they will be different questions than we saw tonight. Okay, we have the mayoral candidates on stage. The same rules apply. 2 minutes introduction, 2 minutes to answer the questions. We selected the order randomly via playing cards. And we'll get started with Mrs. Walter. You have 2 minutes for candidate introduction.
Hi, my name is Tara Walter. Currently, I'm serving as the Vice Mayor of the Town of Florence. In 2012, I was elected to the Town Council. Currently, I'm running for mayor. I'm also the only candidate that is endorsed by the AZ Cops, Arizona Police Association, and the Professional Firefighters of Arizona, based upon my stance on public safety. Our community is also known as one of the safest communities in the United States. I'm going into my 17th year in the field of education. I'm active in our community, in my parish church, and if I'm elected as your next mayor, I really want to look towards how are we going to be able to bring businesses into our town? How are we going to be able to grow smartly while preserving our history?
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Mr. Cox, 2 minutes for an introduction.
Good evening. My name is Jim Cox. I am a longtime local resident of Florence here. Family moved here in 1974. Went to grade school, middle school, high school here. As soon as I graduated high school, I went into the Navy for almost 10 years. Worked in the nuclear power program, nuclear field. Enjoyed a good engineering foundation from that Navy time. When I got out of the Navy, I went to work for Tucson Electric Power, initially shoveling coal, starting at the bottom and working my way up as I attained more and more college degrees in night school into a senior level marketing position, buying and selling wholesale power on the grid as a commodities trader. We all remember the early 2000s and California ISO and all that exciting time. That was a very fun time. I've got an associate's degree in applied nuclear technology, another associate's degree in fire sciences, which is power plants and firefighting, fire controls, that kind of stuff. A bachelor's degree in computer controls and automation. It's a IS degree, and a master's degree in business and accounting. Did all of those at night school while working full-time. Retired from TEP a few years ago and started purchasing buildings here in town, restoring them and making habitats for business to move in and thoroughly thrive.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin, 2 minutes for introduction.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this. We hope it's very educational to you towards the candidates. My name is Tom Rankin. I'm the mayor of Florence at this time. I've been to it for 4.5 years. I've been associated with the town government since 1980 when I took over as chief of police and through up to 94. In 1996, I got elected to the council, resigning 6 years later in order to run for mayor. In 2004, I was elected mayor and again in 2012. Born and raised in Florence, hunted quail out here, have 3 kids, 13 grandkids. My kids didn't have TV, so I got more grandkids than kids. I've seen Florence grow, and I want to continue to see it grow. I've seen Florence prosper. Some people might not think so, but during the big letdown, when the market went, we didn't lose jobs in Florence for the town. We didn't lose jobs because they're government jobs, and governments are going to be the last place to go. So I'm proud that we were able to keep our budget, keep our employees without losing any. And ladies and gentlemen, you have a big decision to make this year on the election of council members and the mayor's position, because we have lots of big things coming forward that we need to really take a look at. You've heard people talk about economic and transportation, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Okay, Mr. Cox, this one's for you. Again, we're starting on the softball question side. What is your favorite place or event in Florence, and why?
Favorite place or event in Florence would be the homecoming festivities, football games. That's a pretty fantastic time. The beauty of that is the whole town of Florence gets together. We go out on the football fields. You can see classmates that you haven't seen in 30 or 40 years. Get together. We have a lot of fun on Main Street. Most of the bars actually open up and pack up, and the town thrives and brings back that essence that it was and had when I was growing up.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin.
A lot of good things are going on in Florence that people just aren't really aware of, but I think my favorite one right now is to kick off the Country Thunder in early April. Before the Country Thunder, we close off Main Street. We have bands, we have vendors, we have things for the kids to do, and we bring in quite a few people. I think we had 800 to 900 people. We're 150 years old this year. Our program on for our 150th birthday is going to be New Year's Day and evening. It'll be on Main Street, and we're going to party like you never partied before if you haven't seen small town parties. But when we talk about community, we need to have people come down and enjoy it and see what's going on. But I think the kickoff to Country Thunder right now is one of the best events that the town and Country Thunder put on for the citizens to get to listen to some country music. Will eventually be out at their facility out east of town. But come on down and enjoy the fun.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Walter.
Richard, I believe the question was, what is our favorite event or place in Florence? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to answer that by saying all-encompassing. My philosophy is I strived when I was at a young age to live and work in the same community. When we're talking about places and events, I look at our schools. I look at downtown parades that we have. I look at how we had the Road to Country Thunder and the Country Thunder events going on. Really, I connect very well, and I want to say my ultimate favorite is the 4th of July fireworks that happen down in the park. You know, we have the band, we have the venues that come together, and I am a little bit partial because my anniversary is on the 4th of July, and it's a family event. It's something that everybody can come down. You can bring your family. You can gather with neighbors. Business owners come out. They're able to bring their products. It's just a great time, and they put on an amazing display. The one change that I would look at, in future years is maybe changing some of the music to be a little bit more patriotic. I think that we need to look at that.
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Mr. Rankin, this will start with you. Should more be done to assimilate the Anthem neighborhoods with the rest of Florence?
Repeat that, please.
Should more be done to assimilate the neighborhoods of Anthem with the rest of Florence, or the Anthem neighborhoods with the rest of Florence?
The answer to that is yes, but it takes a buy-in on both communities, Florence, the old part, Anthem, the new part. We've tried to do that through Little League, through the recreation for the children. It was finally accomplished this year where the kids come out and practice out here because of different things that went on between Pulte and the Homeowners Association and the town. We're all one community. We're not Anthem, we're not Old Town Florence, we're not Florence Garden. We're all Florence, Arizona. How can we do it? We've started it through our schools. The schools are the place that happens. The kids going to high school, the kids coming down to the K through 8 or coming out here to the K through 8. People that lived in the old part of town moving out here and bringing some of their values with them. The lessons that people out here have learned and bring to us so that we can maybe change the direction we're going. But yes, the communities have got, I knew that when Pulte announced this, that we were going to build Anthem, I knew that this was eventually going to be a problem. And we've been working to keep that problem from big. You now have 3 people from the Anthem area that sit on the council. And I think that's helped a lot. A lot more information is coming out to the citizens out here about what we have going on down there. A lot of citizens of Florence come out here for your special events that are open to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Walter, should more be done to assimilate the Anthem neighborhoods with the rest of Florence?
You know, I'm going to say yes, and the reason why I say yes is in 2012, one of the reasons I originally ran for the town council position is our home was broken into. It took 36 minutes for the police to arrive, not for lack of professionalism, but there was only 2 officers on duty and they were both stationed at the downtown sector of Florence. Since that time, that's been one of my goals, and I believe that we've achieved it in terms of bringing our public safety up to par, in terms of providing adequate and appropriate police and fire protection. We've also come a long way with our Parks and Rec and bringing the children of the communities together. A lot of the struggles that you see between the Anthem and the town of Florence community is similar if you look at the history with the core of Florence and Florence Gardens Caliente when they came. You know, they had that separation, that barrier of over the bridge. Now we have a different barrier where you have, you know, south and you have north. There's commonalities that bring us together. We're unique yet different. However, the one tool that I would use to bring us together is communication. I feel that there needs to be stronger communication between all of the areas in regards to what programs are being offered. For example, our senior citizens, we have an amazing senior center and we provide outstanding services. There's transportation that will, you know, transport from the various areas to the community center. We need to start communicating what is available and bringing everybody together in a more significant way.
Thank you, Mrs. Walter. We could hold our applause till the end and we can get through the questions more efficiently. Mr. Cox, should more be done to assimilate the Anthem neighborhoods with the rest of Florence?
Well, absolutely more should be done. We're going to need to get better roads between the 3 sections of Florence, better other infrastructure, traffic lights, power connections, water connections in between the 3 sections of town, on the 2 on the north side of the river and the 1 on the south side of the river. We need a huge deal that I'm seeing out here at Anthem is people that want to get involved in town government on different committees and nonprofit groups and other civic organizations, and there seems to be an awful lot of pushback and push out on that. I see that especially in some of our towns' oversight committees, planning and zoning and stuff. Huge amount of turnaround, very phenomenal base of highly skilled people from here in Anthem with a lot of talent that roll into town and have some great ideas, get on some committees, get frustrated by the way things are working in town and leave. And like going to a restaurant and getting a bad meal, they don't come back. We need to work on that on a town level, and we also need to work on that on a personal level with all our communities coming together. I see some people from the south of Florence here. I'm happy to see that. I see a lot of people from Anthem. I don't think I see anyone from Florence Gardens. Anyone here? Fantastic. So we're getting a good cross-section of all three here. That's a good start. We need to start having a lot more citizen involvement in government, in town, and things we're doing, and we need to welcome people in and celebrate those interconnections.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Okay, Ms. Walters, this question will start with you. If you are elected mayor, how can you help the town become more business-friendly?
Well, if I am elected mayor, how can I help the town to become more business-friendly? That's a great question, because I believe that we need to find out what businesses are going to be sustainable within our town, what is going to be supported by the residents. Right now, we are in the process of strategic planning, and with fiscal responsibility, we're finding out what is it that the residents want us to bring into the town? What is it that they want to see in the town? We also have our different committees. We also have our town staff, various policies and procedures that we can work through. There is a need for everybody to come to the table and participate in the process. Over time, some of this oversight it's lost its transparency. I'm just going to be very blunt. There's been some other things that have happened on a town staff level that maybe has not been clearly communicated in a public way. That needs to change. It needs to come out. There's a lot of residents that they had no idea that Subway is coming, for example, in the plaza up front. That's something that we should know, what businesses are coming to our town, what businesses are going to be supported by the residents, and how can we work with businesses to help, not pay for them, but help them be successful using our own resources, not adding additional resources and funding.
Thank you, Mrs. Walters. Mr. Cox, if you are elected, how can you help the town become more business-friendly?
If elected, I would help the town become more business-friendly by having the town start championing and building some of the infrastructure that's actually going to be needed by new businesses coming into town. We've got some fantastic industrial park sites that are breeding grounds for rattlesnakes and tumbleweeds. We need to actually develop those sites, even if it costs the town money, so that we have 25 to 50,000 square foot buildings that businesses can move into turnkey, ready to go. I'm not talking about giving them away, but I'm not talking about selling them for a profit. But if we don't do that, we can't compete with Casa Grande for that. Using some of our existing infrastructure, we need to make it easier for people to get into old historic buildings and buildings that have sat for more than 30 days vacant. Currently, we have a economic development department that is super well staffed with intelligent, well-meaning people who are picking regulations and trying to enforce them from big town or back east areas that don't apply to our old historic buildings, and definitely don't need to apply to some of our buildings that have been vacant for short periods of time. If we don't make it easier for businesses to get in and get up and running extremely cost effectively, as we heard from some of the people running for council, we don't have a whole lot of people to support businesses. There's not a giant flow of money coming in to prop up big expenses to start businesses. So they'll start, they'll fail. If you look up and down Main Street, I see buildings that have 6-month tenants over and over and over, and I've seen that for the last 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin?
Well, to begin with, I'd like to say I don't believe that we're business unfriendly, no matter what some of the people have spread around. We have a good staff that's working there. Some of the problems that I understand are people don't want to follow the code. And when you're talking commercial businesses, the liability that falls back on the town, that if you don't have a commercial contractor go in and do a commercial business, you can't do it, because the liability would be so grand on the town. Infrastructure, transportation are two of the things that you need to take a look at in businesses. You make it easier by being willing to work with the developers to bring in and develop development agreements. That's where you get to work on the infrastructure, on the payback, so that the citizens don't pay the whole cost of a business coming into town just to have a business. Without the transportation, you can't get the material into a company to build their product. Without transportation, you can't get that product out to sale. That's why the north-south corridor is so very important to us. Land availability, and I'm not sure where Mr. Cox is talking about on the land availability in town. We have one industrial park planned and plotted, and that's out on Highway 287 by the waste management landfill. That's the only place that we have. The town does not have any property to go out and develop a work center at this time. That could be something we do look at in the future, that if the taxpayers want to fund it, then we could take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mr. Cox, this one's for you. What is Florence's greatest resource, and how will you use it to make Florence prosper? In your opinion, what is Florence's greatest resource, and how will you use it to make Florence prosper?
Well, we hear it every day in our jobs and business. Greatest resource is our people, and then we watch as our leaders turn around and abuse our people. It's the same here in Florence. Our greatest resource is our people, and our town government needs to lead our people and pick a definite direction and move that way. Florence in the past has had a strong community involvement. Currently, due to our new growth and our three semi-fractured communities, we're working to gel into a new community. We've got phenomenal people in all three. We need to treasure those people, bring them all together, and come up with something that's going to create a long-term legacy and allow our overall community to thrive.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin?
Could you repeat it, please?
Yes. In your opinion, what is Florence's greatest resource, and how will you use it to make Florence prosper?
People are a great resource, but we have to take a look at the development of where we're at now with the land that we have annexed and brought into the town and do the proper planning on it. Planning around the north-south corridor for your commercial areas and your industrial areas. This has to be done by working with the developers and getting them to buy off on that their property, which they would like to sell in houses just to make bedroom communities, is better suited for the growth of the community by having an industrial area, having commercial areas for people to come in to shop, to build their businesses up. We can do that with the proper planning. We're doing a strategic plan now. We should have an idea of what the people want and be implementing some of the ideas with some of the ideas off the council. When we create this, then we will see things changing. But folks, again, it's transportation, infrastructure, the land. The people are here. You know, it's just not in Florence, but you've got the population to draw from the Santan Valley area. You take the prisons, they bring in, like Councilman Hawkins said earlier, they bring in 5,000 people a day to work. But if I go to Santan Valley, I hear the same thing. It's saying, we're a bedroom community, we don't have anything. We're not unique in not having industry, but I think that we can change it with the proper planning, and if the taxpayers want to help foot the bill on it until the profits start coming back from the companies to pay it, then that's what can be done, and our plan should tell us that.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Walter?
Florence's greatest resource, and how will I use it to help Florence prosper?
Yes.
You know, Florence is the original county seat in Arizona. It holds a lot of history. Presently, one way or another, we either were born here, we moved here, and we have a very diverse community. We all have a lot to bring to the table. For example, last night at the council meeting, there was a gentleman from the Anthem Sun City area who came up with a great idea that will benefit all of Florence to help share, you know, for example, durable medical equipment if somebody is in need of crutches, things like that. Again, the people that are here, the ideas that we bring together, that is what is going to help our community. How will we use it to prosper? We need to come together, much like we're coming together tonight at this meeting. We have 3 areas of our community under one roof. We're all here because we care about Florence. We want to see Florence be great. We want to leave a legacy for our children, for many generations to come in addition. So when I'm looking at our resources, I'm looking at what we had in the past, what we currently have, and what we're going to have in the future. Another program that we have recently instilled is the leadership program for our teens. We're looking towards the future. We're looking towards the growth. Again, we go back to the strategic planning. We have an amazing staff. We are a town of 25,000 residents. 9,000 approximately live outside of the prison, and there are approximately 4,692 full-time residents in the town of Florence. We have a great staff that will also help guide us.
Thank you, Mrs. Walter. Mr. Rankin, if you are elected, what will your priority issues? If you are elected, what will be your priority issues?
I think the priority issues for the future of Florence is transportation. But I also think that you have to take a look at the issues that are facing us as a council on a daily basis, or a council person on a daily basis. Being able to communicate with the people, I think, is one of the best things that we can do. We've got to bring, you know, I keep hearing this 3 parts of town. We're all one town. That's just my feeling on it. My priorities in Florence are to improve the infrastructure that we have in our water, wastewater systems, improve the roadways that we have that are already established that need to be worked on, try to keep our tax base at the same level as it is now if we can't lower it. We have one of the lowest tax bases in the county as far as city property tax. We have to keep that. We also have to keep in mind that we need to continue the growth and talking to people about what is going on in the area. As far as the town council, it works with the school districts. We have no control or anything with the school districts, but we can work with them to make our programs available and our facilities available for each other, so it's a tax savings to the customer. I want to see the businesses continue to grow. We've had more business in Florence now than we've had in a long time. People may not see it. It's on the whole historical district. It's Highway 79. It's out on 287. So, and it's here on Hunt Highway also. So we are starting to get more businesses. People just need to go there, and that's going to be a priority of mine, is how do we get the people to the business providing the product that the people want.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Walters.
If I'm elected, what are my priority issues?
Yes.
My priority issues, my number one is I want to continue on the direction where we are the safest community, where we are providing quality services to our citizens. Because in these times when we're looking at budget cuts, unfortunately, if you take a look at our budget, some of the areas that are cut are public safety. However, we've never sacrificed safety over budgets. We've maintained that level. We need to make sure also that we're looking towards the future into how we are going to grow smartly. One of the main reasons too, and it hasn't been brought up here tonight, that I ran in 2012, not only other than the house breaking in incident, is there was also the Florence Copper Project. And I've done a lot of research on that project, and I am on record being opposed to that project. That's something that I would have liked to see this evening be brought out, and if I'm elected, I'm going to continue educating and committing to being opposed to the project because I do not believe that it is safe and it is going to contaminate our water supply.
Thank you, Mrs. Walter. Mr. Cox, if you are elected, what will be your priority issues?
Priority issues, number one priority is bringing jobs into Florence, more jobs. We need more jobs, more jobs, more jobs. It's all about jobs and bringing them into Florence. We've lost 600 jobs in the last 3 years. Nobody's talking about that. But restaurant owners know it and they feel it. Last night I saw a couple of restaurant owners fighting over a sign this big on a 45-mile-an-hour piece of road. Absolutely crazy. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be working together to make the whole town better. But jobs, jobs, jobs. We've got to bring them in. We've got to get ready to do some industrial job development. While on the topic of jobs, let's talk about that copper mine. I am absolutely against the copper mine. First and foremost reason, it is in the middle of our town, breaking it into 3 pieces. I definitely can feel that. It's not a good idea. If it was in the middle of Casa Grande, the middle of Phoenix, the middle of Tucson, we wouldn't even be talking about it. It's a high school science experiment, quoting their own stock investors. I personally don't think that mine was ever planned to do anything. It's a Canadian over-the-counter traded stock fund, and I think they are just pumping and dumping the stock and making money that way. They won't produce copper. That said, the town needs to quit spending $500,000 a year fighting that copper mine legally. That's as insane as the copper mine. We need to resolve that and get it done and out of there. We need to revitalize our downtown area, really, truly get the old buildings back up and running. That, time up.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Okay, we're back to Mrs. Walters. To start off with is, can you share your experience with boards, commissions, and the Florence organizations that you have served with?
My experience with the Florence boards and commissions, I had a great opportunity to serve on many. My favorites are Parks and Rec, as well as the library use. We have a great process within our town, and actually, it's open to anybody who's over the age of 18 years old who lives in our town that wants to participate. And I want to also take this opportunity to invite anybody who's interested to apply to serve on a board within our town, because it gets you involved in the process of understanding what we have to offer, different areas of improvement, and it opens that avenue of communication from the residents and the citizens to come forward and share those ideas. A lot of great ideas have been brought forward. As a matter of fact, it's one of the ways that the teen leadership had been brought forward. It came about at a meeting, and it was shared, and you know, I'm very, very pleased at the amount of people that have stepped forward and stayed on different boards and commissions and committees. We also have people that have stayed for extended years because nobody else had been able to step up to volunteer their time, to commit to that process. That's something I'd like to see more citizens take part of, is coming to those meetings, participating, and then even serving on those boards and commissions, because that is the level that feeds into the staff and the town council that gives direction. It's almost like that grassroots effort of bringing things forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Walter. Mr. Cox?
Boards and commissions I've served on. Served on the Industrial Development Authority Board for 6 years here in Florence. I've been the member of several nonprofits, board member and officer on several nonprofits, including historic preservation nonprofits here in town that were formed to help as tax donation possibilities for facade easement donations. Didn't work out fantastic. We really need to get the town involved in that. I've brought that to the town several times, but they don't seem to be interested in that, which gives us a real hard spot for trying to develop and restore some of these old facades. But we'll see, maybe that'll get better. Downtown Main Street Board, Lions Club. I am a Navy veteran, so I'm a member of the American Legion there in town. Several other small boards and commissions and groups. I was a member, interesting, a group that participated in a survey of merchants up and down Main Street that was put together by a economic developer, Scott Bowles, that was hired by the town. Put together a real nice survey, surveyed 150 local businesses, came up with some interesting issues businesses were having in town, and one of the main issues, certainly wasn't something I filled out on my survey, but one that came up was a good old boy network in town. When that economic developer presented that piece to town staff, he was fired. That is the kind of stuff you get when you're dealing with the town of Florence sometimes. Sometimes great, sometimes not. Let's go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin.
At this time, my philosophy on being the mayor or a council person is I don't belong to any civic organizations, but I attend all the functions that they put on. I don't want to show favoritism, be put in a position that people would say I show favoritism. As a representative of the town to CAG, I have been elected by the mayors of all Pinal County and all of Gila County to chair the RTA, which is the Rural Transportation Authority for Pinal County. As a representative to MAG for the town of Florence, I also serve on the state or MAG Transportation Board that has a lot of input into the development. One of the things that you can see from our becoming part of MAG is our new street sweeper, which cost about $175,000 and we got for nothing. So there are things out there. I have been a past member of the Pinal County Sheriff's Posse. I've been in the Arizona Law Enforcement Rodeo Association. That was a long time ago, back when I didn't break so easy. I think one of the hardest groups that I was ever in was Little League. Dealing with parents in Little League, I would rather be on the council with 17 people in the audience yelling at me. The people that run Little League need to have they need to go someplace and be patted on the back all the time, because dealing with parents are hard. But I think that I've represented town. I will be representing the town, the East Valley Partnership that we have just joined, and I think that that'll help us on our economic development also.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Okay, so each mayoral candidate will be given the opportunity to ask one question of another candidate, and the candidate is asked question will have 2 minutes to respond. So we'll start with you, Mr. Cox. Do you have a question for one of the other candidates?
Sure. My question is for Mayor Rankin. Mayor Rankin was a police officer in Florence, served fantastically for many years. I believe he was our chief of police for a few years. Ran for mayor twice, and thank you very much for your service. Much of what you see developed out here in Anthem is in a large part due to his vision. Very fantastic. Fire and police have developed quite a bit over the last 8 years. Definitely in the 8 years that he was, am I endorsing him? No, I'm not. But the question is, with all that good stuff going for you, why in your mind, and how do you feel about our local police and fire department endorsing Tara?
We'll start the timer now instead, right? Okay.
To begin with, if the law enforcement officers or the firefighters in Florence, Arizona are supporting Tara, they're breaking the law. Under our code, the firefighter, no city employee may become actively involved in an election. The signs that Tara have out don't state that it's a state organization that are supporting her. They would leave the impression that the Florence firefighters and the Florence police officers support her when they can't. I had the opportunity to have the firefighters and the chiefs of police when I ran in 2008. I think it was 2008. They did support me. I didn't go and ask for their endorsements. I don't have their union logo on my campaign signs. So I don't believe that these firefighters and police officers of the town of Florence support her.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mr. Rankin, your turn to...
And my question is for Tara. Tara, you cannot be involved in the executive session on the lawsuit that the firefighters filed against the town of Florence. In 2015, the Firefighters Association that her husband is the president of filed a lawsuit against the town of Florence over Social Security. The firefighters it was computed out, and the firefighters were given their Social Security back that we shouldn't have been holding out. Now they have sued the town for the town's contribution. Even though you can't vote on it, as mayor, that you would still not be able to vote on it. But as a citizen, do you think it's right for the firefighters to get the town's contribution money and split it up amongst them?
Tom, that's a great question, and how I'm going to answer it is there's currently a lawsuit that's going on that should not be discussed. I do not discuss with either party what is going on, but I can tell you if you look back at the documents and the facts that date back to the 1950s, the town of Florence did violate a Section 212 agreement against the Florence firefighters, and while they were redirected to fix some things, it was neglected by town staff. So I do not contribute to that part. I do not include myself in that part, and I recluse myself from that situation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Walters. Okay, Mrs. Walters, your turn to ask a question of another candidate.
Okay. So I feel that a lot of great questions were not only asked this evening, but I saw some great members of our community put questions into the box, and I'd rather utilize that time to get to some of their questions rather than slinging some mud.
We have time for one question, so we'll just take it at random. And the question is, and I guess we'll start with you, Ms. Walters. Why are the taxes higher in Anthem than in Florence, or the town of Florence, or I guess historic Florence? Anthem already pays entire roads for the streets, or for the bonds for our streets and lights. So the question is, why are the taxes higher in Anthem than in the town of Florence or in Florence proper?
Okay, and I'm really glad that that question was asked, because that's always a point of contention when you talk to the residents. If you look at the different areas of town, they are assessed differently. There are different attributes applied to the different communities. For example, Florence Gardens, Caliente, they have higher impact fees. When we're looking at the Anthem area, our impact fees are $3,500. However, we're also hit with different bonds, Streetlight Improvement District, the CFD. We're the only CFD in the town of Florence. And for that's why our tax bill is actually higher. Now, when you look at how some of that money is spent, that's another area of concern, because prior to 2012, when new legislation was passed, they could basically take the money that was paid and use it towards any project. Like, for example, they used, I think, approximately $4 million towards the community center downtown, which, if you actually look at the original plans that date back, it was supposed to be built next to the Anthem and police substation, bringing the communities together. It wasn't done. Changes were made. It was brought on a June 2nd, 2014 Town Council agenda. And, you know, I'm working really hard to try to figure out how are we going to fix how different people are paying different amounts, how different areas are hit with different impact fees and CFDs. Did you know, for example, the CFD in Florence was voted on by one person, Harrison Merrill. One vote put us into a CFD. What is it going to take to fix it? That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Ms. Walters.
Community Facilities District, ma'am. You're welcome.
Mr. Cox, why are the taxes higher in Anthem than in the town of Florence?
Well, Tara covered a lot of it, but one thing is there's a lot of new stuff, new infrastructure, new schools, things that are attached specifically to this stuff. The way the state and the county breaks that out and applies it to your taxes cause your tax bills to be higher. Another, of course, is your houses are newer and have higher assessment ratios because of that, and they're more valuable. Much more valuable houses have much higher taxes. You can look at value and assessment ratio, and then you go into all the additional fees that end up getting added.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Rankin, same question.
Okay. Your property tax the city charges or the town charges is the same everywhere. In Florence Gardens, Anthem, the old part of town. You pay $1.11 per 100 on your property tax. They're all the same. The different taxes are on your tax bill, if you'll take a look at it, read at it, the majority of it are your school districts, your community school districts, community college school districts. It's not the town. The town, like I said earlier, has the lowest tax rate, one of the lowest tax rates on property in the county. The Community Facilities District, if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be here. At the time that Pulte came in and bought it from Harrison Merrill, they developed the Community Facilities District that Harrison had voted on. A Community Facility District is developed by the property owners. He was the only property owner at that time. Pulte has come in and put the infrastructure in. The Community Facilities District is for your infrastructure, your streets and your roads, your curbs, your sidewalks. The town didn't have the money to put in the utility system. That's why you have Johnson Utilities. The town didn't have the money at that time to put in your roads, so we couldn't come out here and do it and bond it. Our bonding capability wasn't there. The one tax that I was really surprised with, the flood district tax. I wasn't even aware of that tax that came from the magma flood control district. So as far as your taxes, take a look at the bills and you'll see that the town of Florence is $1.11. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. So I would like to ask for applause for all the mayoral candidates. Thank you all for participating. Just want to send a thank you to the town of Florence, the Florence Chamber of Commerce, and APS for putting on this candidate forum. And we're right on time. Hopefully you all will be there tomorrow night at the Windmill for a new set of questions at 6 p.m. Thank you very much.